Welcome to Deep Dive Lab, where we break down and dissect cutting-edge scientific research, from advanced biomedical technologies to breakthroughs in AI, materials science, chemistry, and physics, all told as compelling, easy-to-follow stories.
It is so great to be here for this one.
So I want you to picture this for a second. You're scrolling through a professional networking site, right? Maybe looking for a new contact in your industry.
Or, swiping on a dating app on a Tuesday night.
Right, exactly. And you stop on a profile picture, and the person looking back at you is, well, they're stunning.
Oh, yeah, like absolutely flawless.
Right. The skin is completely perfect. The facial symmetry is like absolute perfection. But for some reason, there is this tiny, almost imperceptible itch in the back of your mind.
Like a little alarm bell going off.
Yeah, exactly. You find yourself wondering, is this a real, living, breathing human being, or is this an AI? So here's a strange question for you.
Okay, lay it on me.
Why does a face that looks absolutely perfectly flawless actually mean it's probably fake?
It really is like the ultimate paradox of modern technology, isn't it?
It totally is.
I mean, we have spent decades and probably billions of dollars trying to program computers to replicate human perfection. And now that very perfection is the exact thing giving them away.
Which is just wild to think about.
Right. But understanding the mechanics of why our brains flag that perfection and how we can actually train our own intuition to spot it, it requires a complete paradigm shift from how we used to think about this problem.
And scientists have actually discovered a way to do just that, right? Like to train our brains to spot these fakes.
Yes, they absolutely have.
But not by looking closer or zooming in with some digital magnifying glass. They did it by fundamentally changing the mechanics of how we look at them entirely.
Which is what makes this research so fascinating.
We are going to get into exactly how they did that, but first, I think we need to establish the stakes here. Because, this isn't just a fun parlor trick anymore, is it? We aren't just talking about being fooled on a dating app.
Oh no, far from it. Deepfake technology has entirely left the realm of science fiction and Hollywood CGI.
Right, it's everywhere now.
It is a massive, escalating threat to global information integrity and, quite frankly, financial security. Put a hard number on it. Projections estimate that AI-related fraud is going to cost the global economy $40 billion by the year 2027.
Wait, 40 billion with a B.
40 billion, yeah. We are seeing synthetic audio used to mimic CEOs authorizing wire transfers and completely fabricated faces used to create, synthetic identities for massive loan fraud.
That is a staggering number. But okay, I want to play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
If I'm listening to this deep dive, my first instinct is to ask, well, shouldn't we just use AI to catch the AI? If a computer built the fake face, shouldn't a computer be the best thing to detect it?
It's a really logical question. And we do have algorithmic detectors. They are definitely a piece of the puzzle.
But there's a catch, I'm assuming.
A big one. They suffer from a massive structural flaw, which is known in computer science as the black box problem.
Right, meaning we don't actually know what's happening inside the box.
Exactly. Modern machine learning models aren't programmed with simple if-then rules. They're these incredibly complex neural networks with millions of parameters. So when an algorithm flags a face as a deepfake, we don't always know how or why it made that decision.
Because the internal logic is completely opaque to us.
Right. It might be looking at a weird pixel grouping in the background rather than the face itself. And furthermore, recent benchmarking studies have shown that these algorithmic detectors have critical vulnerabilities.
Like they get outdated quickly.
Totally. The moment a new type of AI generator comes out, the older detection algorithms can be instantly fooled. It's an endless arms race. So, because we lack a foolproof algorithmic answer, we urgently need humans to be a reliable line of defense.
Okay, let's unpack the human element then. Because originally we tried to train people to act like digital forensic detectives.
Yeah, that was the initial approach.
I remember seeing all these articles a couple of years ago telling you to look for visual artifacts, like zoom in and see if the earrings are mismatched, or if the person has 6 fingers, or if the background blur looks a little weird where it meets their hair.
It makes logical sense, right? Train people to look for glitches in the matrix, look for the mistakes the computer made.
But I'm guessing it didn't work out so well.
The behavioral research shows that this approach failed miserably in practice. In some studies, training people to look for these visual artifacts resulted in absolutely no improvement in detection rates.
None. Wow.
In the best-case scenarios, it produced a measly 10% gain in accuracy.
10%? That is practically a rounding error. when we are dealing with a $40 billion fraud problem.
Exactly.
Plus, just logically, if I'm a sophisticated fraudster running a scam and my AI generates a face with a weird melty earring, I'm just going to open up Photoshop, clone stamp the earring out, and fix the image before I upload it.
And that is the core issue with artifact hunting. It relies on the AI being sloppy, and bad actors are getting very, very good at cleaning up the slop.
Right, they aren't going to leave the 6 fingers in there.
Exactly. But there's a secondary psychological problem that artifact hunting created. It made people paranoid. The studies showed it drastically increased what statisticians call false positives.
Wait, so people started accusing real, actual human faces of being AI?
Yes. Think about it mechanically. If you prime a human brain to constantly scan for weird microscopic flaws, suddenly that brain starts noticing that real human beings are, naturally asymmetrical.
Oh,
We have weird lighting in our photos. The camera lens distorts the background. If you tell someone, hey, look for strange details, they will absolutely find strange details in a perfectly authentic photograph of you or me.
okay, so zooming in with a magnifying glass didn't work. It just made us paranoid, flagged real people as fakes, and barely moved the needle on catching the actual deepfakes.
Yep, it was a dead end.
So how did scientists figure this out? If artifact hunting is a bust, this is where the story gets really interesting. How do we actually solve this?
It comes down to a groundbreaking piece of research published in the highly prestigious journal PNAS, the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences.
Whoa, okay.
The study was led by Dr. Amy Dahl and her colleagues from the Australian National University, along with researchers from several other institutions. And they realized they needed to stop looking at the mistakes the AI makes.
And do what instead?
Start looking at the fundamental mechanics of how AI generates faces in the first place.
I want to dig into that because AI algorithms like the popular one called Styligan, which is used to make a lot of these faces, they don't just draw a face from scratch like a human artist with a blank canvas, do they?
No, not at all. And understanding the architecture of a GAN is crucial here. GAN stands for Generative Adversarial Network. Think of it as a duel between two different AI models.
Okay, a duel. I like that.
You have the generator, which is like an art forger trying to paint a fake masterpiece. And you have the discriminator, which is the art detective trying to spot the fake.
So they are constantly fighting each other. The forger tries to trick the detective, and the detective tries to catch the forger.
Exactly that dynamic. They are trained on beta sets containing tens of thousands, sometimes millions, of real human faces. And as they duel, millions of times over, the generator learns what features are most likely to pass as real to the discriminator.
So it's learning what looks the most human.
Right. And mathematically speaking, the safest way to fool the detective is to avoid anything too weird or extreme. The AI learns to calculate the mathematical average of all those real faces in its training data.
I love this. It's like taking a high school yearbook of 10,000 people, throwing all their faces into a giant digital blender and pouring out the ultimate mathematically average hypertypical face.
That yearbook blender analogy captures the mechanics perfectly.
Right, because if one guy has a really crooked nose and another has a perfectly straight nose, the blender just smooths it out into a perfectly average nose. All the extremes, all the unique quirks, they just get blended away into the safe, smooth middle ground.
Exactly. And because these AI faces are, at their core, mathematical averages, human beings actually sense them as being fundamentally different from real faces. We process them differently.
So our brains just know something is up.
Yeah. Previous cognitive research had already established that AI and human faces evoke systematically different perceptual impressions.
So we inherently know something is weird, even if we can't articulate it. That's that little itch in the back of the mind we talked about. But what are the specific impressions? If you asked me to define the blender face, I'm not sure I could.
Well, the researchers in the PNAS study narrowed it down to 6 specific global perceptual qualities. When you look at an AI face, because it is an average, it is generally perceived as being more symmetrical, more well-proportioned, and more attractive than a typical real human face.
Okay, symmetrical, proportioned, attractive. That totally tracks with the whole flawless profile picture scenario. But there has to be a flip side to that mathematical perfection, right?
There is, and this is the crucial half of the equation. While they score higher on symmetry and attractiveness, AI faces are simultaneously perceived as being significantly less distinctive, less memorable, and less expressive than real human faces.
Oh, wow. So they are incredibly pretty, but they are totally boring.
Pretty much.
They lack character. They are like the background extras of the digital world.
That's a great way to put it. But here is the hurdle Dr. Dahl and her team identified. Without targeted training, observers simply don't know how to use this subconscious intuition.
Like, we have the gut feeling, but we ignore it.
Basically, we sense the face is highly symmetrical and not very memorable, but we either misinterpret what that means or we just fail to bring that feeling to the surface when someone explicitly asks us, is this face real or fake?
Oh, I see. We default back to looking for the missing earring because it feels more scientific than saying, this face is just a bit unmemorable.
Precisely. We try to use analytic processing, like breaking the image down into parts, when we really should be using holistic processing.
Let's talk about holistic processing because that seems to be the linchpin of this whole discovery. To use an analogy, it sounds a lot like how we read a book.
Okay, how so?
Well, when you look at the word apple on a page, you aren't acting like a detective looking at the curve of the lowercase e or the straight line of the p. You don't analyze the letters individually. You just recognize the holistic shape of the entire word in a fraction of a millisecond.
That is a phenomenal comparison. That's exactly it. In cognitive psychology, we know that human beings have specialized neural pathways, specifically an area in the brain called the fusiform face area that's dedicated to processing faces in exactly that way.
So we take the whole face in at once.
Right. You don't recognize your best friend by analyzing their left eyebrow and then their right nostril. You recognize the shape of their face globally.
Okay, so the researchers know that AI faces are mathematically average. They know humans subconsciously perceive this averageness as being pretty but boring. And they know we need to use holistic processing, not glitch hunting, to spot it.
You've got all the pieces.
But how do you actually train someone to do that? Because, you can't just sit someone down and say, hey, process this more holistically. That doesn't mean anything to a regular person.
No, it doesn't. And that's the brilliance of the experimental design. They didn't explicitly instruct the 45 participants on how to spot fakes at all.
Wait, they didn't?
No. They didn't give them a lecture on GANs or mathematical averageness. Instead, they forced the participants to intuitively discover the patterns themselves through guided experience.
Guided discovery. Okay, how did that work in practice?
They gave the participants a series of training blocks. They would show them a mix of AI faces and real human faces, one by one. But instead of asking, is this real or fake, they simply asked them to rate the faces on a scale for those 6 qualities we discussed.
Oh, so they just asked them questions.
Yeah, like how symmetrical is this face? How distinctive is this face? How memorable is it? They just had them rate face after face after face.
That is so smart. By forcing them to rate the specific qualities, they are essentially tricking the brain into abandoning the magnifying glass and turning on the holistic processor.
Exactly.
Because you can't rate memorability by looking at a single pixel. You have to take the whole face in.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
They forced the participants to actively attend to these global impressions, and to measure if it worked, they evaluated the participants' ability to detect AI faces before this rating exercise and then again after.
How did they evaluate them?
They used a very rigorous setup. A triplet selection task where you see 3 faces and have to pick the one AI face out of the lineup, as well as a single face judgment where you just look at one face and say real or fake.
And the data from those tests is where this story goes from, interesting to incredibly practical. Because the average accuracy on the triplet test, picking the one AI face out of 3, it nearly doubled.
It's amazing.
It jumped from just 41.4% before the rating training to 81.1% after.
In the realm of behavioral psychology, a near doubling of accuracy from such a short, unintrusive intervention is a massive effect size.
Right, that's huge.
And what's even more impressive is that the high performers in the group achieved near perfect detection, almost 100% accuracy on spotting the AI.
Just from spending a little time rating faces on things like expressiveness and proportionality. Now, I want to talk about a specific detail in the data that I found absolutely fascinating. When the participants took the test after the training, the response times actually decreased. They were answering faster.
Yes. And structurally, that tells us everything we need to know about the cognitive mechanics at play.
Because if they were glitch hunting, it would take longer.
Exactly. If they were hunting for microscopic visual clues, like the artifact hunters do, you would expect them to take more time. Finding a weird pixel takes time.
But they got faster.
The fact that their response times went down significantly proves they had achieved cognitive fluency. They weren't searching. They were perceiving. They didn't just get better at the task actually became easier for their brains to process.
Wow. Okay, so the training works brilliantly in a lab setting, but real-world applications are notoriously messy. And one of the biggest issues in AI generation and, well, facial recognition in general is demographic bias.
It is a critical hurdle, yes. It is a well-documented fact that AI generation often suffers from racial bias, typically favoring white faces in its training data because those data sets are often skewed.
Which makes the way AI faces look more realistic.
Right. Furthermore, human perception suffers from something called perceptual narrowing.
What does that mean mechanically?
It's the mechanism behind the own race bias. As our brains develop, they become highly specialized at processing the types of faces we see most often in our daily environment.
Well, that makes sense.
So consequently, we are generally better at holistic processing for faces of our own race and less accurate with faces from other demographic groups.
So the natural fear here is that if you train someone to use holistic intuition to spot an AI, it's only going to work on faces of their own race. Like a white participant might spot the AI white face, but fail completely when looking at an Asian face.
That was exactly the researchers' worry. So to test this, the study included both East Asian and white participants, and they used both East Asian and white faces in the testing materials.
And what happened?
The results were remarkably robust. The training worked across the board. Accuracy improved significantly for both Asian and white faces, regardless of the demographic background of the participant taking the test.
That implies that the averageness of the AI, that whole blender effect, is such a strong signal that it overrides our natural perceptual narrowing. The benefits generalize beautifully.
It really did. And it leads to a second major psychological hurdle the researchers managed to clear, which is metacognition.
Let's define that for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar. Metacognition is essentially thinking about your own thinking. It's your awareness of your own cognitive performance.
Right. Do you actually know when you are right? And do you know when you are just guessing? In the context of deepfakes, humans have terrible metacognitive insight.
Oh, we are notoriously overconfident.
We really are. We all assume we are the exception to the rule. We all think, oh, I'd totally know if that video of the politician was a computer.
Right. We assume our intuition is infallible right up until we get scammed on the internet.
Exactly. Before the training in the PNAS study, the participants' confidence levels were completely uncalibrated. They were just as highly confident when they guessed incorrectly as when they guessed correctly. Their internal radar was totally broken.
But after they did the training, like after they spent that time forcing their brains to evaluate symmetry and distinctiveness, that calibration changed.
It changed dramatically. After training, participants showed significantly higher confidence for their correct decisions and lower confidence for their incorrect ones.
So they finally knew when they were right.
Yes, their confidence finally aligned with their accuracy. They developed true metacognitive insight. If a face felt weird, they knew to trust that feeling. If they were unsure, they knew they were guessing.
So if we zoom out to the bigger picture here, what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this deep dive who just wants to navigate the internet without getting fooled by a synthetic identity?
That's a great question.
Why is this global impression training so much more important than just waiting for a better algorithm or a new glitch to look for?
It comes down to the fundamental nature of the technological arms race we find ourselves in. Combating AI-generated content is an endless, exhausting cat-and-mouse game.
Like we said earlier.
Right. If we only train humans to spot visual glitches, like a weird earlobe or a strange shadow, the AI developers will simply patch that glitch in the next software update. The AI will outsmart that specific defense by tomorrow afternoon. It's a very fragile defense mechanism.
But the average perfection of the AI, that isn't a glitch, that's a feature.
You've got it. That systematic generative bias, the fact that the GAN relies on mathematical averages to create faces that pass the discriminator, is incredibly difficult to eliminate from the technology.
Because it's how it's built.
Exactly. It is inherent to how the algorithms themselves function. You can't just patch out the averageness without breaking the model. Therefore, targeting that holistic structural bias offers a much more durable, long-lasting defense than relying on easily fixable image artifacts.
And it brings us back to that humans-in-the-loop concept. We talked earlier about algorithms having vulnerabilities. The researchers in the study argue strongly that we cannot outsource this entirely to machines.
We really can't. Relying solely on algorithmic detection leaves society incredibly vulnerable. When those algorithms encounter a brand new generation of deepfakes they haven't been trained on, or when they are actively manipulated by bad actors, they fail silently.
They just don't catch it.
Right.
Wow.
We need humans in the loop. Combining human intuition with algorithmic detection leverages the complementary strengths of both systems. Algorithms can process vast amounts of data at scale, but humans possess this remarkable, highly evolved, holistic perceptual ability.
And from a societal standpoint, it builds trust, right? If an AI flags a video message from your boss as a fake, but it can't tell you why because the black box, it's really hard to confidently act on that information.
That is a vital point. A human participant who has undergone this rating training can actually articulate why a face looks fake.
They can put words to the gut feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can look at it and say, it's too perfectly proportioned. It entirely lacks distinctiveness. There's no unique character to the expression. That articulate, verifiable reasoning is something a black box algorithm simply cannot provide right now. It gives us a tangible vocabulary for our intuition.
Okay, we have covered some incredibly fascinating cognitive ground here today in the deep dive. Let's distill this down. For everyone listening, here are the three major takeaways from Dr. Dolly's research to help you navigate our increasingly synthetic world.
Sounds good.
Number one, stop hunting for mismatched earrings and extra fingers. The era of playing digital detective with a magnifying glass is over. It is a fragile strategy that doesn't work, and it's easily beaten by basic photo editing.
Spot on.
Number two, start trusting your holistic impression of a face. If a face on a profile looks incredibly attractive and mathematically perfectly symmetrical, but simultaneously kind of boring, unmemorable, and lacking in real human expression, your brain is trying to tell you something.
Your fusiform face area is waving a huge red flag.
Exactly. Listen to that intuition. And number three, human cognition, when it is properly guided, is an incredibly powerful weapon against machine generation. We are not obsolete in the fight against deepfakes.
I think, looking at the broad scope of this research, there is a beautiful, almost poetic irony to this entire discovery.
Oh, how so?
Well, we live in a society, especially online, that is utterly obsessed with visual perfection. We use filters, we edit our photos, we strive for this flawless, symmetrical ideal. But when we actually achieve absolute mathematical perfection through AI, our brains inherently reject it as false.
Wow, yeah.
It turns out that it is precisely our distinctiveness, our slight asymmetry, our memorable little quirks and physical flaws that actually prove our humanity.
Our flaws are our signature. The imperfections are what make us real. I love that. And it leaves me with a final thought, just a question for you to ponder long after this deep dive is over. We've been talking entirely about static images today, photographs of faces on a screen, but the technology is moving at a blistering pace.
It really is.
If this training works so well for static faces, what happens as deepfakes evolve into full motion? Can we train our global impressions to detect the subtle, too perfect unnaturalness in AI-generated audio? What about the cadence of a voice, the rhythm of a breath, or the micro-expressions in a video? What beautiful, distinctly human quirks will the AI fail to replicate next? Thank you for joining us in the Deep Dive Lab. If you loved uncovering the scientific mystery with us, make sure to follow and subscribe for more incredible science stories. Until next time, stay curious.